Mount Sinai is not in Egypt's so-called Sinai Peninsula, and we have proof. Join Michael Rood to discover the real Mount Sinai. This awe-inspiring DVD provides undeniable proof that the real Mount Sinai is in Saudi Arabia, and that Israel has the title deed to the land, oil fields and all. The real Mount Sinai. Order now, online or by phone, exclusively from A Rood Awakening International.
Jewish tradition says the Almighty's name is too holy for common people to say. Meanwhile, Gentile Christianity replaces his name with common, empty, and even false titles, and both are taking his name in vain. Watch The Name by Michael Rood. You'll understand why it matters what we call the Almighty, and discover an authority in Messiah you never knew you had. Order your copy of The Name exclusively from A Rood Awakening International. Nearly 4,000 years ago, fire and brimstone rained down on Sodom and Gomorrah. But where are these cities today? Some believe they were swallowed into the Dead Sea. But there's new proof of what really happened. Join Michael Rood as he reveals the very walls of these cities still standing. Shocking new proof of God's wrath. Order your copy of Sodom and Gomorrah, exclusively from A Rood Awakening International. Have you been misinterpreting the Bible? Michael Rood reveals the true meaning behind the Apostle Paul's warning about false understanding disguised as religion in Let No Pagan Judge You. This easy-to-understand DVD explains the keys to properly understanding the Bible and the words of our Messiah. Let no pagan judge you. Order your copy today.
Ancient Egypt, land of power, dominance, and mystery. But there is one story that is more mysterious than all others. The parting of the Red Sea. The Bible says it happened, but do you believe it actually happened? What if there were proof that the Bible story of the Red Sea crossing is true? What if we had video evidence of Pharaoh's chariot army sitting on the sea floor? Get ready to believe.
When the woman with the issue of blood reached out for the hem of the Messiah's garment, it was more than just a hem, and her actions were more than a plea for healing. Michael Rood reveals the deeper meaning of this Bible account and how the troubled times in our world today are directly related to the hem of his garment. Order your copy of The Hem of His Garment exclusively from A Rood Awakening International.
The Bible refers to the oracles of God as the key to understanding everything in prophecy, past, present, and future. But what are these oracles, and how should we interpret them? The Road to Emmaus reveals the simple secret to the oracles of God and how to use them to interpret prophecy. Get your copy of The Road to Emmaus and pave your way to biblical understanding. Exclusively from A Rood Awakening International. Messiah was not born on December 25th, but many false gods were. Break out of spiritual blindness and show others the way with truth and tradition. In just 30 minutes, Michael Rood explains the disturbing truth about Christmas and why believers should have nothing to do with it. Watch Truth and Tradition and discover the prophecy you never knew about the Messiah's birth. Order your copy of Truth and Tradition exclusively from A Rood Awakening International.
This program is made possible through generous donations from viewers like you. To pledge your support, please visit aroodawakening.tv/give. Thank you.
In Hebrew, the number 70 has prophetic significance. It is a number that represents perfection and completion. It can also represent a period of judgment. If you've watched this program before, you know that Michael Rood's teachings pay special attention to chronology, the order in which biblical events happen, recognizing that when something happens is often just as important or even more important than what happened. Watching the news in the last few weeks, one can easily see that events surrounding Israel and the number 70 are something we need to consider with spiritual eyes open. We're going to explore that tonight on Shabbat Night Live!
Michael, it's going to be a great show tonight.
It will be.
Stand by, studio, 30 seconds.
He just got it.
Thank you. One minute's air, Michael.
Ah, thanks.
All right.
Thanks, Ellie.
Shabbat Shalom, Torah fans. Welcome to Shabbat Night Live. Tonight, you need to watch very closely because Michael is going to share something very intriguing about current events and chronology. It's episode 6 of the new 7-part series, 10 Jubilees to the End Time Messianic Age. Tonight's episode, the time of Jacob's trouble begins. And the timing for this episode could not be more perfect. By the way, if you like what you're seeing on this series and you want to share it, you can pre-order the entire series now on Blu-ray or DVD, and we even have it on audio CD if you like to listen in your car. Order now and save 20% off the regular price. Next week is the final episode, and it ships immediately after that on Monday, February 13th. Now, we're talking about chronology tonight, so to keep things in proper order, let's welcome my co-host for this evening, the Director of Ministry Development for A Rood Awakening International, Annie Reid.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Excellent. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
So we're talking about chronology and things coming up. Most importantly, of course, the Israel tour.
Yes, so we do have an Israel tour contest winner But Michael would like to announce it himself. So after he's done with this Jubilees series, he will have a special announcement to congratulate the winner.
Okay, so that's in 2 weeks' time, because
That's right.
this is episode 6. Episode 7 is the big one next weekend. And then we have the Israel Tour winner. Now, if you want to go on the Israel Tour, of course you can do that. There's several spots left. It's March 19th to 30th. You're going to go to places no other tour tells you. And so if you want to sign up for that, all you have to do is go to roodtour.com, and it's as simple as that. All the information is there, and you can fill out a form, and you're on your way. We'll have someone contact you, and you'll be in Israel on a tour unlike any other. Again, go to roodtour.com, and if you'd like to join us for Passover, you can do that as well. That's right after the tour, April 14th to the 16th. PassoverCharlotte.com. The early bird tickets are on sale now. That means you're going to save $40 per adult.
That's right. We have Bill Cloud that is going to be at Passover, Steve Mutria, Chris Knight will be taking care of our youth. And we've never had a youth program before, but this is the year that we want to focus on our future generations. We want to lead and teach those that are to come into these leadership roles in the future. So Chris is going to do an excellent job leading the youth. We have a wonderful children's program. The matzah mixer, we have a wonderful Seder.
Yep.
That is going to be unlike the ones we've had in the past. The circle the wagons. I mean, it's just going to be a weekend filled of fun and somber, recognition of what this feast actually is.
And if you're seeing this after hours and you're thinking, oh, I want to jump on that right now, I'm not comfortable going online, I want to call them and get my ticket that way. Well, now you can call us 24 hours a day on the number on your screen there. We have folks to answer your call, to answer your questions about any of the programs we have or what's going on with the Rood Awakening. So you just call the number there on the screen and we will get back to you. That's a new thing we're doing. And we're very pleased to have it because folks who live in time zones that are not matched up with the Eastern time zone often miss us during business hours. So call us anytime. We'll be here for you. And if you're watching on YouTube, by the way, and you haven't subscribed yet to YouTube, this is something you need to do. You need to do it right now. Michael made a special point. He said, you know what, guys, you need to encourage people to go on YouTube. So you'll get notification every time we're going to go live. And every time we post a new video, you'll get notification.
And not to mention, Michael's going to do a lot more relevant information that is up to date. There's so much happening in the world right now. There's so much news, especially pertaining to Israel. So every single time there's breaking news, Michael's going to make a point to create a video to announce it to you, to give you his opinion, and to let you know how it relates to what's happening in the Bible. So right now, we're going to wait for you to just subscribe.
Right. So literally right now.
That's right.
We're not going to continue until you just subscribe, okay? So you look for the subscribe button right below the video window right there. So just click it.
Somewhere.
So how long should we wait, Annie? Should we just wait here for them to do it? Or
We're hoping they're doing it right now. And if you're watching us on TV, please know that you can go to our YouTube channel. We have thousands of videos available for you to watch absolutely free. And we also have a lot of resources on our website. Just visit aroodawakening.tv and you can get blogs. You have, all of our products. You have all of our teachings.
everything.
So.
Yep. Any new thing that Michael's doing, it's there. So go visit us right there. Okay, so you're done. Great. You subscribe. Thank you for doing that. All right, so on to the calendar. First of all, before we get to the calendar, we want to note that it is February and it's time for the new love gift. This is the season of our insult. Michael's new teaching for February right here. It's episode 14 of the 20-episode Love Gift teaching series, The Ministry of the Messiah. Michael actually talks about his favorite video, or his favorite video in the Bible. No, what age are we living in? His favorite verse in the Bible. He actually mentions it in here. If you give us a gift of $50, we will send this to you as a thank you gift. If you want to give $100 or more, you'll get the teaching plus an alabaster jar filled with frankincense oil. And the idea is, as Yeshua teaches, as Michael teaches about Yeshua in this episode, that our fragrance on the outside is to be the same fragrance we are on the inside. So be as you are inside as you are on the outside. That's the whole point of the teaching. That's why we have the alabaster jar with the frankincense. And if you want to get it, you can get it right now. It's roodawakening.tv/lovegift, or you can call your number at the bottom of the screen if you like to do it that way.
How beautiful.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Now, okay, so that's our love gift, and now as promised, we're going to go to our calendar. We are in the 11th biblical month. We are in the month of Shabbat, and we are on the first Shabbat of that month. New month. It's in our biblical Hebrew calendar. There's still 5 months left on this calendar. We use a different calendar. Why? Well, we want to get into the time and context of Yeshua, Jesus, the Messiah. And in order to do that, understand what he did and when he did it, more importantly sometimes, is to look in the calendar that he used. And that's what we've done here is we've used NASA and all kinds of modern tools to go back and figure out when things happened.
That's right. The modern day calendar was created not long ago at all. And so we can't expect Yeshua or Jesus to have followed that calendar himself. But I know that we have even more important information that is happening today that Michael's going to comment on.
That's right. Yeah, Michael has some important information today. We were looking at the calendar and all these type of things, and like we mentioned before, what's happening in Israel, lots of significant things happening. And Michael's teachings are right in step with what is happening there. And as we head toward Revelation, all of these things are coming together. And a partner of ours.
Thank you, Dennis.
Yes.
You are such a blessing. You're constantly looking out for us, and we're very grateful for you.
Yeah, Dennis had sent us an email, and he said, I found this online. What does Michael think of it? And it's called The Great Secret of Revelation 12 Occurs in 2017. Now, this was written, strangely enough, in 2014, June 24th, 2014. So we printed this off, gave it to Michael and said, he's the master chronologist, of course. And we said, well, Michael, what do you think of this? Does this make any sense? It mentions specific dates in 2017 and the alignment of stars, as we mentioned, we can do now with NASA data from NASA and things of that nature. So we wanted to bring Michael on and talk about this because he said, when we showed this to him, he said, I've got to cover this myself. So Michael, we're going to hand it over to you. What do you think of this great sign of Revelation 12 occurring in 2017?
Dennis Albee sent me this page, something that's going around on the internet about the great sign in the heavens spoken of in Revelation 12 occurring on September 23rd this year. Now, the sign of the new moon beneath the feet of Betula happens on a regular occasion, and it happens in September. That's when it happens. But with the other constellations, the other things that are happening, the other alignments, this is a very significant event. But it's not what is spoken of primarily in Revelation 12, because it is speaking of the new moon beneath the feet of Betula, and she, being in travail, cried in travailing in birth, and she brought forth the man-child who is to rule all nations with the rod of iron. Specifically speaking of the birth of Yeshua. These signs in the heavens do not tell us what's going to happen. It is only because Daniel received revelation about what was going to transpire in the future that he was able to put his treasure in the hands of the Chaldean astronomers. They were then, hundreds of years later, able to deliver that gift to the feet of the Messiah, and they went to Jerusalem. They didn't even know where it was going to transpire. They just went to the capital. So it is with this sign in the heavens coming up. This will not be the rapture, and it is not halfway through the tribulation. No, none of these things have begun. First of all, 7-year tribulation is an invention of Hal Lindsey. There is no specified time. What we are looking for, and this is what we will see, is the confirmation of the covenant. This is what we're looking for. Thermonuclear war, confirmation of the covenant that begins the last 7 years. It's not 7 years of tribulation. It begins the last 7 years. And of course, in the book of Revelation, Revelation 12, it speaks of taking the time from before the birth of Yeshua all the way to the last 3.5 years, which is the time of great tribulation. But again, this is not the rapture. This is not the middle of the tribulation. We are looking for it. That's why every week, Shabbat Night Live, that's why I'm doing this special, because the prophets have already spoken about what's going to take place. Now it's happening. We'll see you then.
All right, very interesting stuff. Thank you, Michael. So coming up, episode 6 of Michael Rood's new series, 10 Jubilees to the End Time Messianic Age. Episode 6 is called The Time of Jacob's Trouble Begins. But first, if you're watching this on Sky Angel or Uplift or Hope TV in Canada or any other television network around the world, we need you to keep us on the air. Your donations are the only means of support that we have. There's no corporate sponsors, anything like that. So if you'd like to give to this ministry and get a great thank you gift from us for doing so, here's how you can get that exciting love gift we talked about earlier. Thank you.
When Yeshua was invited to dinner with Pharisees, he rejected their man-made ritual hand-washing. an insult that would lead to his crucifixion.
He doesn't wash his hands. He marveled? No, he was offended.
The Season of Our Insult is an all-new teaching from Michael Rood, but the only way you can get it is with your love gift donation in February. Own the Season of Our Insult right now when you give a love gift donation of $50 or more. Or donate $100 or more to get this new teaching, plus an alabaster jar and a supply of anointing oil infused with a wonderful scent of frankincense.
And Yeshua said, you Pershim clean the outside of the cup and platter, but inside you are full of gluttony and excess. You fools!
Act now to get Michael Rood's new teaching, The Season of Our Insult, plus the alabaster jar and anointing oil. Hurry, make your love gift donation now, online or by phone.
More and more information is coming out on how the Obama administrations, Barack Obama and John Kerry, were involved in the architecture of this condemnation of Israel and the United Nations resolution, give us land or there will be war. John Kerry gave us some very great pointers, and to be with us to discuss some of his great wisdom of John Kerry, we have an update with Nehemiah Gordon. And Nehemiah, good to have you with us again.
Hey, Michael, shalom. It's great to be back and talk about what's going on. It's really unbelievable. You know, recently John Kerry gave this interview to CNN's Christiane Amanpour, and he says, I'm reading here, I thought, frankly, it was inappropriate for a president-elect. This is after Donald Trump, just before he got into office, had criticized Angela Merkel, who has destroyed the European Union by bringing in 1.1 million Muslim refugees, really undermined the European Union, led to the Brexit. So Trump said that was just like a disaster, and Kerry responded. He said, I thought it frankly inappropriate for a president-elect of the United States to be stepping into the politics of other countries in a quite direct manner. This is the same John Kerry who, as we're about to discuss, sent $350,000 to an organization to undermine Benjamin Netanyahu, and actually was meddling in the Israeli elections, the exact thing they're accusing the Russians of doing.
That's right, through the U.S. State Department. And Kerry was in charge at $350,000. I guess it's really $349,276, I guess.
Of U.S. taxpayer money.
That's right, taxpayer money that was given to this organization called what?
It was called One Voice, led by this guy named Nimrod. And their stated purpose was anybody but Netanyahu.
That's right.
Can you even imagine if Vladimir Putin sent $350,000 to an American organization that's stated purpose was anybody but Clinton, or anyway meddling in U.S. affairs and U.S. internal elections?
Right.
And so this One Voice organization built up a campaign infrastructure using U.S. taxpayer money, and then they immediately deployed that infrastructure against Benjamin Netanyahu in the March 2000.
That's right. See, the grant was given to them for a specific moment, part in time. And that is when they built the entire infrastructure to attack Netanyahu. And then when the grant time was over, then they immediately employed everything that they had built. And so before Congress, they can say that we are not guilty because the State Department did not tell us what we could or could not do after the money was spent with what we built during that time. Yeah. These are the kind of crooked, deceiving politicians. And John Kerry, of course, I mean, talk about talking out both sides of his mouth. This guy cannot tell the truth. And what happened with Kerry, unbelievable meddling. Yeah. They took American taxpayers' money. Now this is not a secret in Israel, is it?
Oh, this has been something that's been discussed for quite some time. But what the headline here is, Michael, is the U.S. Senate subcommittee did an investigation and they found out this is true. Yeah. And in fact, one of the things that they're saying technically it wasn't a violation of U.S. law. That might be the case, but you're meddling in the internal election affairs of an ally you're doing exactly what you're accusing Russia of doing, and in fact, something much worse. You're openly sending money to campaign against an ally in their internal elections. Israel's a democracy, and we have elections, and they're spending money to create an election infrastructure. I mean, it's just imagine what the response would be if they found out that Vladimir Putin had sent money to build up the campaign infrastructure of the Republican Party. It would it would be the end of the Republicans. And look, the organization is called One Voice, which I think is really interesting. We have this story, of course, in Genesis chapter 10 and 11 about the Tower of Babel, the Migdal Babel, the Tower of Babel, and it's led by this man. According to some traditions, the leader of that was a man named Nimrod, and because his name means in Hebrew, "Let us rebel." But in any event, this One Voice organization in Israel is led by a man named Nimrod. And at the Tower of Babel, they said, let's come together because we have one language and one voice, and we'll come together and rebel against God. And God then scattered their languages. And boy, the parallels are unbelievable.
Oh, it is, because this is what the Almighty made an everlasting covenant with Abraham. I mean, right back, we're still back in the book of Genesis, that all this land, the Euphrates and Nile, belongs to the sons of Israel. And now, what are they doing? They're coming together against God's covenant with his covenant people, and it's going to end up the same way. The Tower of Babel is going down. Babylon is going down.
Michael, I want to read something from the U.S. Senate Subcommittee report. This is Senator Rob Portman. In the report, he said, it is completely unacceptable that U.S. taxpayer dollars were used to build a political campaign infrastructure. This is referring to the $350,000 that were given to One Voice to undermine Netanyahu. A political campaign infrastructure that was deployed immediately after the grant ended against the leader of our closest ally in the Middle East. American resources should be used to help our allies in the region, not undermine them. And I just can't believe all this noise that's being made about Putin supposedly intervening in U.S. elections, and the U.S. openly is intervening in Israeli elections.
Yeah, and how they get out of it legally is by, quote, there were no limits placed on post-grant use. That was it. That's how they get away with it, and this is what Kerry has done. This guy is slime. So and yet we have CNN, the propaganda arm of the Democratic Party, fully supporting it. Like, yeah, it's okay. They figured out a way around this by their verbiage. Legally, they did that, but legally, they interfered with what Kerry said. It's unconscionable.
Right. Look, so they actually, in this report, in the Senate Subcommittee report, they uncovered that One Voice, this organization in Israel, whose motto was anybody but Netanyahu, they actually sent an email to the State Department telling the State Department what their specific intentions were, why they were building the campaign infrastructure using the grant money. Yeah. And the man at the State Department who received the email says, well, I never read that email. There's something wrong with the emails.
That's government. Right. Well, part of the problem, they admitted, is that they couldn't prove because they didn't keep their email records, i.e., we erased them. I mean, Hillary Clinton is not only the deleter of the free world, we have the entire State Department that's what they do, undermining Israel, undermining the United States of America to turn it all into their Novus Ordo Seclorum. Unbelievable.
In any event, they found this email, and the man testified and said, look, I didn't read that email, so I should have known but didn't know. Bottom line is, whether it was legal by U.S. law or not, it was immoral to interfere in the elections of a democratic nation that's supposed to be your ally. It's the very thing that you're saying that Trump is, this is what the Democrats are saying, that Trump is not legitimate because the Russians interfered in the elections. Trump didn't make Hillary Clinton write those emails and delete emails. Trump didn't make Debbie Wasserman Schultz conspire against Bernie Sanders to put in this candidate that didn't have the mandate even of the Democratic Party. That was all the Democratic Party doing. Trump didn't make the password that was the key to getting all this information. I don't know, if you guys, if we talked about this, I forget. But the password that they cracked, the hackers cracked, was password.
It was password.
Right.
Yeah.
So the senator or whoever he was, he got this email that said you need to reset.
Didn't take a Russian to figure that one out.
Right. I mean, it really could have been Baron Trump who did it. I mean, the password was password. They were asking to be hacked.
Well, we also, on this very thing, of course, they're trying to make it a scapegoat for the Russians. WikiLeaks, all the people that were leaking this information said, no, the Russians had nothing to do with it, but it was a leak. It was not a hack. And the person that leaked it, we know who leaked it, and this is the man that was found shot to death in Washington, D.C.
Look it up, guys. Rich Seth. He was assassinated almost certainly by Hillary Clinton's people. He was mugged, and they didn't take his watch or money. What?
Yeah, right. Well, this is a long chain. I mean, there are over 50 dead bodies surrounding the Clintons, those who are going to testify against them, Vince Foster being one of them, and yet these people have gotten away. Hopefully, Nehemiah, hopefully the swamp will get drained, and there are just very few statesmen left in Washington, D.C., but there are some. There are some good men, there are some good women, but we haven't seen them for a long time. It has just been a cesspool up there, and God, let the fire fall. Let the fire fall, because, as the prophets speak, that's why judgment comes, is so that God's people get released from that kind of corruption. That's why fire and brimstone fell upon the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, because of the pedophilia, what was going on there, the sex slavery, the human trafficking. People don't even stop to think what was going on there is going on in America and is going on among members who are in tight with the Clintons. All this stuff, the swamp has got to get drained, and hopefully it's going to happen.
Yeah, I think the U.S. and some of the Western countries have Sodom and Gomorrah beat by in some of the things going on. I mean, it's really draining the swamp. Boy, let's hope. Let's pray. I'm definitely praying for I prayed for Obama to be a righteous man and for God to turn his heart and to do righteousness, and he didn't.
No.
And he hardened his own heart. And I pray for the current administration that the creator of the universe turn their hearts towards truth and righteousness and do positive things.
Amen.
May it be.
Amen.
Michael Rood's Message of Truth is broadcast all over the world, but none of it happens without the monthly financial support of our Ambassador Club members. And right now, membership has more benefits than ever.
I'm giving into a ministry that is helping to feed other people that have this same hunger that I do.
Join now, and Michael Rood will send you the Ambassador Club Welcome Kit, an exclusive messenger bag stocked with teaching DVDs, Red Sea crossing cards, and more. You'll also receive ambassador-only bonus gifts whenever you make a separate donation to receive the monthly love gift. Best of all, you'll get ambassador-only sale prices in our online bookstore several times throughout the year. Plus, exclusive invitations to Ambassador Club functions at a Rood Awakening events. All it takes is a modest commitment of $100 per month or an annual gift of $1,200. Call now or visit the Rood Awakening website to join the Ambassador Club.
The last night that Yeshua was with his disciples, the Last Supper before the Passover was sacrificed, he took bread and he took wine. He said before that Abraham saw his day and rejoiced. But what does that mean? He saw his day and rejoiced. Well, it was the Melchizedek, the king of righteousness, that brought forth bread and wine to Abraham. He blessed the Most High with the blessing that Abraham taught Yitzhak, Yitzhak taught Yaakov, and is still spoken today. Whenever bread and wine is served at a Jewish table, whenever it is Sabbath, especially around the world, the bread and the wine are brought forth with this blessing. Baruch atah Yehovah, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pari hagafen. Blessed are you, Yehovah, our Elohim, King of the universe, the creator of the fruit of the vine. And Yeshua then said, Blessed are you, Yehovah, our Elohim, King of the universe. who brings forth bread from the earth. He said, this represents my body, which will be broken for you. This represents my shed blood that pays the sin penalty because of the broken covenant. As often as we do this, we do this in remembrance of him. So break the bread, share the wine, and we do this in remembrance of him until he comes. The astronomically and agriculturally corrected biblical Hebrew calendar. Every year that I publish the calendar, which has now been for 20 years, I include the article, The Maiden Moon by Bruce Brill. Now, Bruce Brill was an independent journalist. He was actually vetted by the Jerusalem Post with a lie detector test because Bruce Brill worked for NSA, the National Security Agency, or NSA, no such agency. And he was with the U.S. Army, worked for NSA in America, and he was in the U.S. Army back in 1973. And he experienced something that the Jerusalem Post wanted to know and needed to know if he was telling the truth or not. Bruce Brill tells the story how he was working with NSA, and in 1973, the U.S. State Department told Israel that the Arabs would not attack them on or before Yom Kippur. And this was the statement that they made. Don't worry about it. On or before Yom Kippur, you've got no worries at all. They're not going to attack. Go about your normal business, because things were heating up. They knew something was going to come down. Well, at NSA, Bruce Brill was then called in. The entire team was called in before the event, and they were all going to be on leave, taking off, and they were all called back in because they knew it was going down on Yom Kippur. But yet the State Department deliberately lied to Israel so they would be caught off guard, and they came within an inch of extinction. If it were not for the Victor Kalani in the Valley of Tears and the incredible tank battle that took place, that took the lives of so many people, if it were not for that and the hand of the Almighty, which sent an angel, and this is reported by the Syrians themselves, that they saw an angel tell them to stop at the very place that there was erected between Laban and Jacob, a place, a monument that says, the Lord watch between you and me if either one of us crosses over this line to do harm to one the other. When they came to that line, they said that they saw an angel standing there, covering the sky with a hand out saying, stop. And they turned the entire tank battalion with nothing stopping them. They could have been in Tel Aviv in an hour and a half, nothing to stop them. And they turned around and went back to Damascus. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Bruce Brill, in 1998, I came with the calendar. It was very similar to this one right here. This is an old piece. This is what it started out being right here, which is just basically calculations. This is one of my old working models right here. But I took it to Jerusalem and to find new moon watchers, someone who could verify our sightings. And I will say this is what appeared in the papers in Jerusalem in 1998. This is what Bruce Brill wrote. So, he's a respected journalist, and even though they put him to a lie detector test, everything checked out, they realized that this is too hot of a political potato to hand to anyone, that the United States State Department, the one that Hillary Clinton was in charge in, but not yet, the State Department has been undermining Israel and the United States for literally generations now. And the U.S. State Department deliberately lied to Israel to cost thousands and thousands of lives and would have, if not for the hand of the Almighty, caused the extinction of the state of Israel. And so he gave his testimony, and they decided, the politicians decided, we can't touch this thing. But this is what he wrote in 1998, published in Jerusalem. Just this year, 1998, an American team, including astronomer Robert Scott Wadsworth, published a calendar of the projected monthly new moon appearances from Jerusalem. The team's Michael Rood arrived in Israel recently with the express purpose of finding moon watchers to confirm his team's exciting findings. So far, his data from the Jewish New Year and this writer's sightings agree. If Rood's data scientifically confirms my nearly 5 years of observation, then the Jewish people are out of sync. Furthermore, if this is true, then instead of a calendar on the wall, we should be looking for the forlorn maiden moon each month in the twilight of the western horizon. How did I meet Bruce Brill? Joshua Cohen got a hold of me. We were staying up on the roof at Petra Hostel. He said, you've got to come and meet these people. They're harp makers. They're Jewish harp makers downtown Jerusalem. And so I followed him down. We went into the harp shop there, and as I was speaking with Mika and Shoshana Harari, and I'm talking to them about the situation that here we are, and we were wrong on both days. The biblical calendar is definitely different from the modern Jewish calendar. And Mika Harari said, well, what difference does it make as long as we're celebrating the feast at the same time? And right then, we could see walking up to the door, a glass door, he said, oh, this is of God. You can't believe who's about to walk in the door. Guy walks in the door, opens his mouth immediately and says, we couldn't see the moon the night before last. We couldn't see it last night. We missed Rosh Hashanah by both days this year. And I said to him, was the new moon such and such percent illuminated, so many degrees above the horizon, 5 minutes after sunset? He looked at me and lit up and knew that I knew that this was the most important thing in the world. Within a few minutes, I find out that he has built a home out in Tekoa, on a mountaintop in Tekoa, with the apex of the roof open so that every month he could sight the new moon. I came there looking for new moon sighters, not even understanding or realizing that the rabbis have been having a rabbinic court every single month and hearing the testimony of new moon witnesses. We had 5 years of calculations. And when I say this, ladies and gentlemen, here it is. I'm just going to bring this stuff out. These are calculations. These are literally pages, thousands and thousands of calculations that we did over years and years of calendar work. This is what I presented, and the rabbis who had been watching the new moon every month found that what we had calculated by scientific calculation from the United States of America was dead on every single month for the entire 5-year period that we calculated it, bringing it up through 1997 and 1998 to show when the new moon would be seen. And this is the work that went into it. This is why I was saying in our last episode that, this isn't something that, was just Johnny come lately. I hear about the calendar and I decide to come up with it. We were working on the calendar more than 30 years ago. These are pages, all handwritten, hundreds of pages of calculations to be able to determine the biblical calendar and how it is all calculated. If it's not here, then then we have them. Oh, I have actually blank pages left over from back in those days. Here's another notebook. You want to see it? Here's all handwritten. This is Robert Scott Wadsworth. This is his own handwriting. We began in 5 BC, before the Common Era. 5 BC to figure out what is going on with the stars in the calendar around the birth of Yeshua. These, ladies and gentlemen, these are more than 30 years old. So when I talk about the 38 years that it took to be able to do the chronological Gospels, I'm not joking. This is how long the years of research went into it. Oh, here we are. Oh, you want to see what it takes to do this? Here it is in typewritten with whiteout. And after the whiteout, we get tired of using whiteout. Then we just put them in these things and use blue ink, markers on it in order to be able to sort these things through and keep on working. And so there were questions that I had 30 years ago that it took more than 30 years to get an answer. Some questions, 20 years I had the question on because it just stopped. Could not figure it out until modern astronomy, until mirrors on the moon. All these things took place, and then finally, our calendar is in the hands of the Rabbinic Council that's responsible for citing the new moon. Well, that year, 1998, when this was published, then I was invited to become a member of the Israeli New Moon Society. Because 5 years, never missing it once, they were all amazed. Because the rabbis, the rabbinic scholars, when the Israeli New Moon Society meets, it's not done in English. You don't speak English except at the breaks. And everything is done in Hebrew, so Bruce Brill is the one that has to translate for me. But the president was up front, and he said, I've got to go up and let him know that you're here. So he went up and told him he was getting his papers arranged on the dais. He came back and shook my hand, introduced himself, and said to me, there's one more calculation that you have to have before your calendar's right, because I had the astronomically corrected biblical Hebrew calendar. And then he tore off a little piece of paper from my notes, wrote down a phone number on it, and that's all that was on it. And then he said, tore it off, put it under some, and he said, now don't show this to anyone, it'll get us both thrown out of here if you do. Do you understand? I said, yeah, I understand. Understand no one's to see this. I had no idea why he'd get us thrown out of here. I mean, he's like the president of the Israeli New Moon Society. So the next day, Bruce makes the call, and down at coffee time, we meet Nehemiah Gordon. Now the rest of the details come together. This is 1998, and this is the year that it all comes together, because I meet the Karaite Nehemiah Gordon, who came from America. It's a Hebrew University student at that time, and he came over specifically to work in the land of Israel, to understand the Aviv, which he'd heard about from a child in Hebrew school, sitting on the knee of his father, who was teaching him the Torah when he was 4 years old and reading Hebrew at 4 years of age. He wants to know what this is all about, because he now knows that this is the beginning of the year, and this is exactly what the New Moon Society, they all know. And as a matter of fact, the president said, Rosh Hashanah, the beginning of the year on the first day of the 7th month, it's a rabbinic tradition. It's not true. The year begins when the barley is Aviv. And that was all he said as he whispered this to me. I sat there with Nehemiah and Bruce Brill, and the rest of the details came together at that point. This was the beginning of the astronomically and agriculturally corrected biblical Hebrew calendar, the last piece of information that it took to get this dead on. And without that information, and the years that Nehemiah documented this, more than 12 years of working before he could say definitively, yes, we know what Aviv is now. It took that many years of in the fields, day after day, at the time when it should be Aviv, analyzing this stuff out, not just flying in at the last moment, but out there working in the fields, working in the barley to understand this. We planted that year 7 barley fields in the land of Israel. I bought the barley, we tilled the fields, we dunged them, we did everything in order to plant these. We planted 7 of these fields in the property of Levites around the land of Israel. This is not something that was done in a corner, ladies and gentlemen. This was so that I could understand and figure out the chronological gospels, the order of events in Yeshua's ministry. That's what it was all about. So that was when I first met Nehemiah, and it was at coffee time downtown Jerusalem, and that is where things started rolling. It was 2 years later, in the spring of the year, that I said that if we have accurately calculated and adjusted for the barley in the land of Israel this spring. Because at that point, in the year 2000, it was still a question. It was still, to fully understand exactly what this ancient Hebrew agricultural term meant. It had taken over a decade, and yet the question was still there. Have we done it right? And I said, if so, then we are going to see violence erupt in Jerusalem before sundown, September 28th. Now, why would I use a pagan date on this? Because no one would understand that if I said the first day of the seventh, before the first day of the seventh month, which was sundown, September 28th. I made this statement. I was on the Prophecy Club tour, 90 cities. I was around speaking these words all over America, on radio, on television, that we will see violence erupt before sundown, September 28th, if we've corrected the barley for this year. Well, what happened that year is Ariel Sharon, on the morning of September 28th, with a group of people ascended the Temple Mount. He read the prophecy of Ezekiel concerning the two sticks in the hand of the Messiah, bringing Judah and Israel back together again in the last days. The violence erupted, and it was just as I had read in Isaiah. See, I didn't pull this out of thin blue sky, nor did I receive revelation from an angel in heaven. I was taken to Isaiah, and Isaiah speaks of Israel's leaders being boastful and doing wickedly against the covenant. This is God's covenant with Abraham. All the land from the Euphrates to the Nile belongs to the sons of Israel. No one can annul this covenant. No one is going to circumvent this, because even the Almighty put Abraham to sleep, as if to say, it's not even up to your strength. You're going to be dead in the grave. I'm going to make this. This is my covenant with Israel, which I will never break. It is a blood covenant. I will walk like a smoking pot up and down between these pieces of flesh through this blood. This blood is on my feet. The blood is on my head if I do not fulfill this. This is a blood covenant, singular, on the hand of the Almighty. And he said Israel's leaders would do wickedly against that covenant. They would, for the promise of peace, give away this land under the hand of the United Nations. It is an agreement with hell, a covenant with death, that the Almighty said, I will annul with violence. That covenant was entered into September 13th, 1993, White House lawn, called the Oslo Accord. Oslo, meaning toilet seat in modern Hebrew. It's just the capital of Norway otherwise, but the Almighty does have a sense of humor. And it was at that point in time that they made a 7-year agreement. Now, there were people out there, again, false prophets. I remember this began the last 7 years, and we're going to see the abomination of desolation in 1996, and if this doesn't happen, I am not a prophet. Never listen to me again, because the Lord told me that that this is what it is. And if not, no one should ever listen to me again. Well, I didn't say anything at the time. I said, well, if it is, we're going to see global thermonuclear war by the spring of 1996. So what happened at this particular point in time is in 1993, Israel made a 7-year agreement with the United Nations, the Oslo Peace Accord, in which they would give over the land, part of the land of Israel, to the enemy, to the United Nations, to distribute to the enemy of Israel. They would give over the Temple Mount to the Pope, would have control of that. The East Jerusalem would be the capital of the terrorist state of the Palestinians. And what would Israel get? They would get peace. Yeah, right. That's what the plan was. They agreed with how the covenant with death. It was a 7-year plan, and that is why I said the Almighty said he would annul that covenant with violence. What is 7 years from September 13th? It's not September 13th, because September 13th is a pagan date. It is Tishri 1. Tishri 1 of this announcement 1993. We go 7 years into the future. It is Tishri 1 at sundown, September 28th. And so for more than a half year, I said, if we have accurately ascertained the Aviv for this year, we will see violence erupt sundown, September 28th. What happened? A lot of false prophets out there started saying, I said Jesus was coming back on September 28th. Why did they say that? Because they're morons. They're complete idiots. You know, people that know little about anything they didn't learn in seminary. Messianic Jewish leaders. Basically, you know, Baptist theology just wrapped up with a bunch of Jewish words arguing with the rabbis about whether Yeshua is the Messiah or not, okay? It's like Baptist theology, pre-tribulation rapture, dispensational theology, replacement theology still pervades because, you know, it's basically, the Messianic Judaism cult is basically a bunch of Baptists that are Jewish that, you know, want to be really special, but hang on to their Baptist theology. I was raised a Baptist too. I had to shuck the Baptist theology and everything related to it, such as replacement theology, which is based on dispensational theology, upon which the pre-tribulation rapture is built. Without replacement theology, there is no pre-tribulation rapture. Just doesn't exist in the plain text of the scripture. So, what did we have? A bunch of people saying that I was a false prophet because I said Jesus was coming back. I said, read the book. Read the book. It's 10 years old. No, at that point it was 5 years old. It's like 30 years old now. 5 years old at that point. I already laid it out. There's no question about it, ladies and gentlemen. And so, what happened? It was annulled. And as far as I know, it's the first time that an ancient prophecy has been called to the very day. Not because of an angelic visitation, it's because of decades of attempting to understand the Creator's calendar. Volumes and volumes, hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of hours, years of my life to put into this. And that's why when people come up with a new calendar and all this, it's like, oh, people, you know, I did this in kindergarten. I was doing this. We got it right before you were born, okay? You know, we don't need to rehash it so you can become famous by coming up with a new Wheel of the Stars or some plagiarism of Murdoch's, you know, Aramaic work of a Greek translation of a Hebrew translation. You know, it's time to grow up, people. It's time to understand when the message is coming from heaven and when it isn't, okay? So now, here we go, people. Israel experiences the second intifada. Thousands of people die. We're still in the same intifada to this very day. And then we have something happen the very next year. It's the year 2001. March 26, 2001 at sundown. This is when the report comes from Nehemiah, the barley is Aviv that week. We know sundown, March 26, that will be Aviv 1. And now my calculations that I've been working on for years are now complete. I can do no more. I can do no less. I have calculated now that we are 240 and 1/2 years have been subtracted from the total elapsed time calendar on the Jewish calendar. Rabbi Shimon Swab said that he could prove there are 167 years that were missing from the calendar. He also stated that when the head rabbis hid the book of genealogies, which is written by Nehemiah, and you've never even seen it, you've never heard about it, ladies and gentlemen, because this is only in Hebrew that the details of this exist. That the rabbis hid the book of genealogies written by Nehemiah, and when they did that, it darkened the understanding of the rabbis. That's what took place. It darkened the understanding of the rabbis. And when it darkened their understanding, they were no longer able to calculate the year from creation that we were actually in, so that no one would know when the day or the millennium of the Lord began, which I was looking for. 6001 would be the beginning of the day or the millennium of the Lord. This particular year, in the spring, I get the word from Nehemiah, I am in Orlando, Florida. And I am working fiercely to complete the calendar and then to send it to press. And that morning I say, I have no choice. I must go to press with this. There are no more calculations. There's nothing that I have access to that would allow me to change. This is the year, right now, the beginning of 6001. March 26th, at sundown. The first day of the month of the Aviv, 6001. And Chaim Goldman was there. A number of others said, well, we really need to pray for confirmation. I said, I've been praying for confirmation. I am praying for confirmation. And then we received a phone call. It was a Messianic leader that was there in Orlando, wanted to meet with me. And so we said, well, you tell us where. We're not familiar with the area. I was just in the area teaching. And he found out, he drove over, and guess it was a couple-hour drive. Got over there and told us what hotel to meet at. We met for a couple of hours, and then at the end of the meeting, as we were saying goodbye, the doors of the grand ballroom opened up, and out came, in full regalia, the Freemasons of Florida, having just concluded their big weekend event. I thought, what an excellent opportunity. We walked into the grand ballroom. I said, let's see what's in there. What accoutrements they may have. Let's see if they have a rendition of Solomon's pillars in there or whatever. Walked in above the dais. It said the 170, forgive me if I don't have the number right now, but I believe it's the 173rd Annual Convention of the Freemasons of Florida. On one of the chairs, only one, was the budget for that year for the Freemasons. Somebody left it behind. I'm sure this was not public information. And I looked at it and I saw this is when they were founded. It has the seal of when they were founded and the Masonic seal. And I did a quick calculation. I said, it's 6001. And they said, no, the 173rd, no, you can't count, it's 6,000. I said, no, it's an annual convention. You start with the beginning. And I said, no, it's 6,000. And the rest of the team with me, they were, I'm not sure that's right. So we got back to the hotel. And I said, okay, I'm going to find out. I went back to the hotel, and it had all broken up. I walked around the swimming pool, found a man with a Masonic emblem on a shirt, and I said, according to my calculations, this is the year 6001, according to the Masons. He said, that's right, 6001 AL. I said, AL, what's that mean? In the year of our Lord? I said, no, AD is Anno Domini, in the year of our Lord. And he said, no, I think AL is the year of our Lord too. And I showed him a video, The Great Secret of Solomon's Temple, on the back. It has 6001.com. He was shocked. He was stunned. He said, let me find out what AL means. And he called up a 73-year-old Masonic scholar in Texas, got him on the phone. And so he talked to him for a minute, then handed the phone to me. And I said, and so what does the AL mean? He said, Anno Lucis, in the year of Lucis. In the year of our Lord, I understood. That week, because this was going to transpire on Shabbat, that week, 40 Ashkenazi and Sephardic rabbis met at the Western Wall to make a unified proclamation to the Jews of the entire world. And I'm going to tell you what that proclamation was right after we take this break. Doesn't matter when you're watching this because we are freely giving that which cost us thousands and thousands of dollars, an incredible team of people, a staff that not only are degreed, but also years of experience in the field to be able to produce these programs and to get this message out to the world. We're doing everything we can, going every venue that we can. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been invited on just about every Christian network on the planet. The only thing that holds us back is that we don't have the finances. Why? Because this is the truth, and people don't want to support the truth. They want to support some feel-good thing where, send me all your money, I'll pray over it, and you're going to be, floating in a yacht or driving a Rolls Royce or some such nonsense with these hairdo preachers, okay? I'm not giving you this hockey foddy. I'm telling you the truth, but I need you to stand with me. I'm not promising you, a rose garden. I'm promising you that we will be faithful to get the word of the gospel of the kingdom that Yeshua taught out to the world, and I need your help to do it because our reward is on the sea of fire and glass, period. I need a check for $5 million. I need somebody out there to write me a check for $5 million. If you can't write me a check for $5 million because I already know what to do with it, it's not going to be buy a new car. Mine is 7 years old. It's close enough. Oh, folks. No, if you want to help, I know where it's going to go. I need that check. If you can't afford $5 million, $1 million will do. If you can't afford that, at least tithe. At least a tenth of what you earn in this life belongs to the Almighty, just because you're breathing His air that we have been messing up. Okay? So you got 2 minutes. That's all you got. I need your help. The Almighty is depending upon you. Do what you are supposed to do with what you have been given in this life. See you in just a minute. When the 40 rabbis from both the Ashkenazi and the Sephardic persuasion, rabbis that disagree on so many things, they have two different versions of the same books. They have two different calendars, and even on the modern Jewish calendar, it will give you a date for the Pharisee, Shavuot, Pentecost, and another date for the Zadokim, the Sadducee, Shavuot. Because the Zadokim, the Sadducees, the sons of Zadok, that priest line was in charge of the temple. And the temple service was done according to all the commandments and ordinances of King David. All of the rehearsals that David put in place for Passover, for Shavuot, the Feast of First Fruits, Sukkot, all of the feasts of the Lord, everything that David put in place that were being done in the Second Temple period was because David was a prophet who saw beforehand the coming of the Messiah. He put in place these prophetic shadow pictures that the Messiah would fulfill. in Jerusalem, when he comes to Jerusalem. And so that's why we see when the scriptures unfold, the chronological gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, all show how the Messiah is literally fulfilling the rehearsals that were embedded in the feast that David, the prophet, saw in advance. And that is what allows us to decode the gospels and to understand what is going on. By understanding the feast of the Lord and the Creator's calendar, that is how things can be put in chronological order. That is why I can take any chronology that has been done, and I don't care what language it's in, because I can go there and I will find the verses and I will show you where they made their mistakes, and I don't even have to be able to read the text. I know where they made the mistakes because they keep making the same mistakes over and over and over, because every chronology of the Gospels has been done by Gentiles who know nothing about the Creator's calendar, nothing about the feast of the Lord, and did not have the advantage that I have had. Isaac Newton didn't have my advantage. He's far smarter than I was, but he did not have Armstrong putting mirrors on the moon in the calculations of NASA that spanned well over a decade for us to be able to run through our little computers and then produce the result that allows us to find the first sliver of the new moon in Jerusalem at any point in time in history. Ladies and gentlemen, it is incredible what we have. These things were reserved for this day, for such a time as this. And that's why the question, were you born for such a time as this? Or are you just an extra on the set? Are you just taking up space? Are you just breathing good, clean air and soaking up the rest of the water and will never do anything? See, you've been put here for a reason. We are staying on the shoulders of giants who went before us, who gave their lives to get a copy of the scriptures in a language that we can understand. They gave their entire lives to do this. This only took me 38 years to be able to produce this. But I couldn't have done it if people hadn't died. Men, women, and children butchered by Rome because they had a copy of this in the language of the people. And it was absolutely forbidden because they wanted to have complete tyranny over the mind of man. I, like Thomas Jefferson, have sworn eternal hostility over every form of tyranny over the mind of man. That's exactly what's on the inside of the rotunda of Jefferson's memorial. That is one of the greatest memorials in America that has ever been. I have sworn upon the altar of Almighty God eternal hostility over every form of tyranny over the mind of man. And I will not have people tyrannized by King James English. That's why I've corrected it. I've set you free from King James English, but to get to the heart of what Yeshua is talking about, to get right down to what he is doing, where he is going, what he is saying, why he's saying it, to whom he's saying it, when he's saying it, to have all the details in order, that has been the driving passion. And now, the rabbis, Sephardic and Ashkenazi rabbis, who can hardly agree on anything, make a unified proclamation to the entire world. The week of March 26th, leading up to that Shabbat, they made the proclamation, and they made it twice. They went down on two separate occasions to establish it. The time of Jacob's trouble has now begun. Jews now from all over the world return to the land of Israel. The next year, at the time that the barley was Aviv and the new moon appeared, they said, last year, we said that the time of Jacob's trouble has now begun. Jews surrounded or scattered over the face of the earth, now come home to Israel. We've been calling for this for a year. Come home to Israel now. The time of Jacob's trouble has now begun. But what happened 6 months after the time of Jacob's trouble had now begun? A Jewish prophet left the environs of Jerusalem with a message to the people of Iceland. He arrived called a press conference, and he said to the entire nation, the Muslims are about to do something that will change the face of the earth. It will be so horrific, it will change the world. All week long, they kept replaying that press conference. And every night on the news, the newscasters would laugh at him. The crazy man from Israel. The crazy man from Israel, night after night after night. The end of the week, this berated prophet flew back to Israel. I arrived the next morning. I went to sleep. After 2 days of not sleeping, I woke up with Ingy at Ingy's bed and breakfast, slamming his fist on the door. Something terrible has happened in America. The trade centers were on their way down at that moment. I picked up where the prophet left off. I was sent from Costa Rica to deliver a message. And that message, I went for hours on television. And as I mentioned last week, at the end, I did a seminar, and a woman stood up and said, I thought you were going to tell us the relationship with Solomon's pillars and the trade centers. And a bolt of lightning went through me. I mean, it was electric. It almost floored me. And I said, I didn't know that I was going to tell you about it, but there's something there. I don't know what it is. Then at the last great day, what I shared with you, in Jerusalem, when the revelation concerning the evil fire offering in the flying containers, the size of Scud missiles, being launched from the land of Shinar against the land of Israel, and what would be the beginning of it? The two man-made mountains of brass. Those two towers coming down. And that is when the war chariots were released. That began World War III. The Muslims had declared war upon all the Jews who happened to own the trade centers and the Christians. That was the beginning of the war. And I wrote at that time that the Almighty is going to use the worshipers of a fictitious moon god to judge those who have turned their back on the creator of the heavens and the earth. And the nation that declared, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, in that they are endowed by their creator with absolute inalienable rights. Rights that no king, no religious or civil tyrant has the right or authority to strip from the people. And as Samuel Adams said, that all rights are antecedent to the Constitution. They come from the great legislator of the universe. This God that we swore to honor and love and respect and trust, this God has now been nullified by the atheist, socialist, and the Muslims that we have elected and put in government. They will be used, the Muslims, to judge America, just as they are being used to judge Europe now. Ladies and gentlemen, they're going to be used to judge Israel as well. It's going to set in place that which I am going to be able to share with you when we come to our culminating moment in this series. March 26, 2001, the time of Jacob's trouble has now begun. Every year since that day, that is when the rabbis again assemble to declare that in 2001, on that date, the day of trouble, Jacob's trouble began. Just began. It is not a 7 years of Jacob's trouble, ladies and gentlemen. Time of Jacob's trouble begins at the beginning of the 7th millennium. Now, I know I would love that for it to have been the beginning of Yeshua's, that he would return then and reign forever, for 1,000 years upon the earth. That would have been great. In 2000, when the violence erupted, I expected that it would erupt into full-blown warfare. I really expected that that's where it was going to go. But I had no revelation to declare, thus saith the Lord. I simply had the clarity from the scriptures to say that violence will erupt in Jerusalem before sundown, September 28th. That's all that I could say, because that's all that the scriptures say. Because the prophecy concerning the scriptures, or prophecy about the scriptures, or a prophetic word doesn't come by the will of man. The confirmation doesn't come by the will of man. In 2006, when I put out the Jonah Code, I would love to have been able to give you the confirmation back then, but I didn't have it. All the pieces were not in place. I said I have more, but I knew then that there are more pieces that have to fall in place that were not there. Just 6 months later, it was the week leading up to January 27th, which started the new week. But we had been filming in Israel over on the side of the Mount of Olives. Actually, the moment in time was captured on the bloopers reel. I was saying that there was a particular time in Israel when the people were, and then a siren went off, and I said, arrested. That was not in the script. That was not what I was supposed to deliver at that time, but right then, something hit me. I was due, in just 6 months' time, I was due to do a first archaeological tour extravaganza in Israel. Everything was being set up at that time. I heard the siren go off, but see, we had been hearing sirens go off and explosions happening and buses being blown up on a regular basis. And there were bombs that were being blown up in Jerusalem just about every week. We were told before going over there, we were actually at Enlace in Costa Rica, where we had the contract with Enlace to produce the Feast of the Lord. And they said, do it here, film it here. We got a brand new studio, it's yours. Says it's dangerous, it's too dangerous to be doing this in Israel. And I said to Jonas Gonzalez, I said, the safest place for me to be is in God's will. And Roberto Emmanuel was there and heard that statement. And now Roberto actually arrives in Jerusalem that week and is there for that filming. But I heard that siren go off, and you know, just the gut-wrenching feeling when a bomb goes off and, you know, people are dead and another bus has been blown up, you know, 2 blocks from the house. And, you know, one was blown up just on the other side of the building where my daughter, who came to visit, you know, steps out of the shuk at Mahani Yehuda, and the bomb goes off and people are screaming and on fire, rushing out of that. There's no way to describe the horror, the terror that happens. And right then, something hit me, and I heard a voice that said, what if you bring a tour over here and they blow up the bus? Now, that is what I heard in my head, and it haunted me. It haunted me for days. I couldn't get that out of my brain. What if? That is something that sets in motion some fear that goes through the mind. And I am just praying about it because it was a question and I don't have the answer. It rains all week. We're unable to film. And then finally on Sunday morning, January 27th, it's a beautiful sunshiny morning in Jerusalem. We're living on Eli Cohen Street. And so Chaim decides he's going to take off and go downtown. And I decide a little while later, I'm going to go down and get a cup of coffee. It's about 3 miles downtown Jerusalem. So we don't take a bus, we walk, because a bus is $1.25. And 3 mile walk, it's good for you. And we only rent a vehicle at the very days that we're filming. And that's what kind of tight budget we're on to produce a chronological from the Rood Awakening from Israel series. And so I go downtown and I'm walking. It's a beautiful day. The streets are absolutely full. First day of the week, everyone's working. The kids are at school. And but yet the streets are filled with people. So much so I'm walking down Jaffa Street and I have to get around this one area. I had to step out on the street and walk around the bus stop, and then I step back up on the street, and then my eyes catch a shoe store, Jaffa 50. It says Now Sandals. It hit my mind. Heim said that he needed to have his Now Sandals resold. So as I'm walking up toward the building, out from the building, a woman walks with a suitcase in her hand. We walk past each other, and I keep walking, and 4 more steps, the entire front of the building dissolves. A blast goes past me in smoke, and I smell the fumes of burning flesh and burning hair, and then a woman's head rolls to my feet. I look to my left, and there are arms and there are legs. There are people that are on fire. I look out in the street, and there's a man with both of his legs blown off. His right arm is gone, and the stub of his right arm is on fire. He flails for a couple seconds, and he's done. He's gone. He's dead. I look back at myself to see if I'm all there. And I hear a voice that says very calmly, very loudly, because I'm literally deafened from the concussion, and that's why I wear hearing aids today. You are here to help. That's what I hear. I turn to my left, and I see an Israeli soldier who has blown his back. His shirt is gone. The stubble of his hair and beard are just smoking. It was just flash fire. It's gone. He's blown his back. He struggles to start to get up. I step over this woman's head, leap over a few arms and legs, and there I get to him as he starts to struggle to get up, and I see he's covered with blood, and he looks at me and says in English, which surprises me, am I hurt? And I run my hands over the front and the back of him, and I take his right hand and put it above a gash above his right eye, and I said, keep pressure on this. You've got a cut above your right eye, but you are going to be okay. This is not your blood. And then I turn to my left, and there's an M16 just a few feet away. And I said to him, is that your weapon? And he said, yes. I said, I'm going to get it for you, okay? Because now I'm going to arm myself. The shoulder strap, a nylon shoulder strap, has been shredded from it. The force that it would take to do that, I can only imagine, having carried an M14 with a shoulder strap like that. He's got an M16. The shoulder strap is shredded from it. I go over, I crawl on my hands and knees. I get a hold of it with my thumb and forefinger and drag it over to the soldier and put it right in front of him. I flip it over. I check the magazine and safety. I look at him and I say, I am a U.S. Marine. If anything happens, I will handle your weapon for you, okay? Now, fortunately, I didn't have to go on and explain how I'm a fat, old U.S. Marine. At the moment, U.S. Marines seem to just work for him. And I know from experience and from what I've heard in the past that many times the terrorists, the Muslims, will set off a bomb. As the rescue workers come in, then they will still open up fire or set off another bomb. I want to have a weapon there so that I can put a bullet in the head of the first person that starts to shout out, Allahu, bam, dead. That is what I'm watching for. That's why I need the weapon there. Seconds pass. I look around. There's another Israeli soldier blown back. Other people are getting to him. Then there's a woman who is caught up in these wires that are in front of this pillar that are blown down from the building. And she's tangled up in them. Now, that just happens to be that 16-inch wide concrete pillar that I was on the other side of. That as a woman walked out of the shoe store with this suitcase and stepped past me, she took 4 more steps and that suitcase detonated. I took 4 steps and I was squarely on the opposite side of the concrete pillar that blew the entire front of the store away. For 150 feet in each direction, all the front storefronts were gone. Across the street, for 100 feet, the storefronts were gone. The front windshield of a bus was blown out. 150 plus people are going to go to the hospital. It is the largest bomb that's ever been blown up in downtown Jerusalem. And this woman is tangled up in these wires trying to get through them. And I could see that blood was soaking her sweater. It's just a few feet away. The rifle is in front of that Israeli soldier. I know all I have to do is turn around, drop down, and I can grab it. And so I will go over to her, and I see that the blood is coming out from her sweater. And I look down, and she has a piece of plate glass sticking out of her thigh, tangled up in this. I look in her eyes, and they are completely dilated. There is no color at all. I thought that she may have been blinded by the concussion. And I said, can you see me? Can you see me? And she said, I have to find my husband. I have to find my husband. I said, no, your husband will come to you. I took her by the shoulder and I held her firmly because I know she can't move right now. We got to wait for the medics. If she moves, she could cut an artery. And so I've just got to hold her. And she said, I have to find my husband. And then she looked over my shoulder and saw the man in the street with both of his legs blown off. And she screamed, my husband, that's my husband. And I just prayed. I said, Lord, what do I do? How do I comfort her? And right then, a young Jewish girl came up. And I said, she can't move. You got to hold her right here. She can't move. But that's her husband. She wrapped her arms around her sister, avoiding the glass in her leg, and just held her right there. I looked around. Other people were being taken care of. Emergency workers were coming in. Looks like everything was going as planned. No other attacks. So I picked up this woman's head. I held it in my arms, thinking, here's a young Jewish mother, her children at school, her wife, husband's at work. No one's even going to know she's dead for hours. What am I going to do with this woman's head? And so I took a piece of the blue banner that blew down from the building. They covered the man up in the street with part of it. I took this woman's head, I wrapped it up, and I was standing there and thinking, what am I going to do? I can't just lay it down. So I put it over by a pillar. I stepped back and I said, I'm going to have to wait until I can tell somebody what I did. And so an officer, IDF, came up and I said, I wrapped a woman's head and I put it over by that column. And I couldn't think of Rosh Isha to save my life. I could, Hebrew. And he finally, and he said, woman's head? I could tell by his expression he knew. It's time for me to get out of there. I walked a half a block away and I stopped. I thought I better take a better look, make sure I'm all there. And I had blood, I had flesh, I was just covered with just all sorts of human debris at this point. And I held up my hands to look to see if everything's all right, no cuts. And I was rock solid. It surprised me. I thought I would be, just shaking with adrenaline rush. That's what you would expect from that. But I'm rock solid. You're here to help. You're here to help. I'll tell you, ladies and gentlemen, if I had heard from the Lord that morning, I'm going to send you downtown Jerusalem and blow up a bomb just 8 paces away from you. People's arms and legs you're going to have to step over. You're going to hold a woman's head in your hands, but not one hair of your head is going to be singed. If I was given that revelation, I think I'd probably still be under my bed today. I'd never walk into that situation. But ladies and gentlemen, that happened to me because it is a prophetic testimony. We are here to help. We are not here to get blown up. We are here to help. And if we will do our job right now and continue doing that, when the brimstone hits the fan, when the earth shakes, you are going to know what to do. You will be rock solid because you are on a rock. That is why that happened. Because the time of Jacob's trouble has begun. There will be 1,000 on one side and 10,000 laying dead on the other side. It won't come nigh to you. This is the promise. We're all going to go sometime, but we're going to live as if we are immortal because we are. If we are dead and in the grave, blown to pieces, We will be raised with an incorruptible body if we are still alive. Radiation burns, whatever. We will be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye. But until that day, you are here to help.
The lives of Israeli victims hang critically in the balance following events of terror, violence, and war. But there's another painful problem: men, women, and children living in poverty. And you can be there for them.